Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam, and I'm about to start the show, and I just want to give you a piece of advice, okay, before I start the show. You know how it's Wednesday, right? So you know how they always say that Wednesday is hump day, to get over the hump of the week, right? Well, you can't go to work and say, hey, happy hump day, because you might get in trouble for that, right? In this day and age, everybody's going to assume that what you're saying is something, not suitable for work. So instead of saying, hey, happy hump day, just say, hey, you should get the book Sheep Know More, The Art of Awareness in Attack Survival. It's a best-selling book, and it'll show you how to look at yourself and your life from the attacker's perspective and teach you the technique of attack and defend, how an attacker will plan an attack and how you can best defend against what you discover about yourself. And happy Wednesday. So you could say that and you're not going to get in trouble. You could also tell them about the kids' book, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, which is a book of pictures that you can give them. And then you, the parent or the guardian or the teacher, you go to teamlittlebigs.com and download the lesson plans. There's even kind of an instructional video that goes there. There's also a COVID video where you can let your children see it. It's got the voices of the characters so that they can understand some of the things they're being told to do, like distance and wear a mask and so on and so forth. You can get the lesson plans, to give the book to the child. Each picture has about 5 lessons in it. It also works with learning disabled children and children between the ages of 1 and 8. And trust me, you read Sheep Know More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. You can apply it in the workbooks and then give your children, your young children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, and you get the lesson plans. Your entire home and life, your businesses, everything will be safer. And then you can truly go to work and tell everybody, hey, happy Wednesday. Let's start the show.
The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And as the commercial there at the beginning said, it's a happy Wednesday. And listen, this is one of those days in the news, okay, where stuff is just, I don't know, there's nothing really new. There's nothing really super exciting in the news that we don't know already. I mean, it's like being in a situation, like when you get in trouble when you're a kid and you had to go, well, for those of us that got in trouble when we were kids, but you have to go wait outside the principal's office, or you're waiting for your dad to get home, or, you're going to get in trouble when you get home from your mom. And that anticipation between the time that you actually did something and the time that you're going to actually get punished for it, that's kind of what it feels like every day in the United States now. You wake up and you're kind of in this environment where you just don't know what's going to happen in a week or in a month or in a year. You just don't know. And so the news gets very redundant. And it's also very interesting because you turn on the news and it's doom and gloom for Donald Trump on the liberal media. And then on Fox News, the headline is about Mitt Romney saying that if Mitt Romney, of all people, saying that if Trump runs for president in 2024, he's going to get the nomination. Pretty interesting, how the two narratives are so split and so different. And so I guess the only thing I really wanted to talk about today is how important it is for you to not allow what you see in this world, or what you want to do what's right, or you want to make good decisions about, how to treat other people, or decisions about, what is true and what's not true. Just remember, if you're looking at everything in your life as though it has to be divided between the left and right, or liberal and conservative, you are being played. Very few things in this life that you will live here will be determined by left or right. Is this what the Democrats believe, or is this what the Republicans believe? Because let me just tell you this. I'm probably going to tweet this out. When you hear this, you'll see a tweet. In fact, this may be the headline of the episode, is that the the last I checked, God was the authority. Jesus is also the authority because Jesus is God, but he's also the standard, not the Democrat and Republican parties. They're not the standard for health care. They're not the standard for fitness. They're not the standard for how to have a peaceful way of life and morality. I don't get my morality from a political party. And that's basically what's happened. You look at every single thing in the news, and it is split between the Republicans and the Democrats. And that is not how you should pick your political candidates. I mean, listen, if you pick a Democrat political candidate, I will say this, okay? Even though you're not going to get your morality in these things from the political parties, one thing I will tell you, if you continue to pick Democrats for positions of power, you're going to get communism. That's what you're going to get eventually. I can't say that the Republican Party is perfect in any way, shape, or form, but there are conservative-minded people who understand morals and ethics and the rule of law that are running for Republican. In fact, we should be pushing people forward. Do you know who is in charge of the Republican Party in your area or in your state? If you don't, you should find out. Those are people that you should be hounding. If you know somebody who's good, who could actually be a legislator or a city manager or a governor, those are the people that you should be pushing them out to. Because ultimately, let me tell you, this is the reality of how this game works. Okay, you think in every 2 years or 4 years or every year when election comes up that you are the one making the choice. But the reality is you're not making the choice. You're being given a choice. And then you either vote for that choice or you don't. So it would behoove you to get to know who these people are. And the reality is that is who you should be holding to the fire. They're the ones who can make or break a candidate because the money is going to go through the Republican Party. And whoever gets that nomination, that's going to go through the Republican Party. Then you get the final vote on it, or the public does. And no matter what, I don't care how nice, moralistic, and ethical and a good leader somebody from the Democrat Party is, if they subscribe to the Democrat Party, they're giving the Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party is a socialist / communist / globalist / unethical, immoral, unnatural political party. And they're not about solutions or the Constitution or a better way of life. The Democrat Party is about power. It is about the Democrat Party. It is about progressive leftists. That's it. It doesn't matter if this one person is good. AOC, every once in a while, like the thing with the elderly people who've been murdered by Cuomo in New York City by having COVID positive patients put into the hospitals with them, or into the elderly clinics with them. AOC is called for an investigation on Cuomo. I agree with her on that. I've been fighting for that for over a year, but it doesn't matter. She's a leftist, and she belongs to a leftist party, and she gives power to people who want to destroy this nation. She has unrealistic expectations. She should not be in office. Now, at the same time, many of these establishment Republicans and people who are they just crave being in office, like people on American Idol crave being famous. So interesting. American Idol is a perfect example of politics. All these people show up and they try out, and they're terrible singers. They're not even talented at all, but they want to be famous so bad that they lie to themselves, or maybe they sound good in the shower, but they actually are tone deaf in reality. And they show up with unrealistic expectations of who, or an unrealistic understanding of who they are. And it's the same with politics. So many of people that are in politics have no idea how to lead. They've never been in a leadership position. Even the people who have prior political positions, like maybe they've been a legislator, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, they got elected. By the way, the best thing on Twitter is when people put up former congressional candidate. That's on their Twitter thing. Okay, you were a candidate, which means that you declared that you were running for office. Doesn't mean you were in office. If you were not a congressman or congresswoman, why would you put that up? I've even seen people announced on television, former congressional candidate. What does that mean? I ran in track when I was a kid. I didn't win any major races. I was in springboard diving when I was in college. I sucked at it. Do I put former springboard diver, former collegiate springboard diver? That's about the same thing. So a lot of the people that are called to politics are absolutely horrendous people. They should be nowhere in the vicinity of a leadership position. And many people are like this in media as well. It's all an ego trip for them. They're all called there to feed their ego, and that's it. That's all they're doing. And your ability to discern amongst these people is very important. And the only way you're going to get that is if you get your morals and ethics and an understanding of what works and what doesn't from God. That's the reality of all this. You look towards Jesus, you look towards God, the Bible and you read that and study it. Get an audiobook, listen to it. You will get a good foundation, a great foundation, the ultimate foundation of morals and ethics and an understanding of leadership, failed leadership, ego. Every failure that a politician could have is in the Bible. And actually the success, those who were successful, that's also in there. Everything that you see happening with the way people are now is totally predictable. I was talking Dr. Lucarini, who I just love this guy. He's my doctor out in Arizona. And he's been on here when we were talking about COVID last year. I need to have him on again. And we were talking about politics and the Supreme Court. Listen, I'll just say this little side note. I told you to watch out for Amy Coney Barrett, right? Everybody was talking about how she's a warrior for this, a warrior for that. She is an establishment politician. Just like pretty much everybody in the Supreme Court except for Clarence Thomas. Because you got to remember, as I'm saying, this is what I was having the conversation with Dr. Lucarini today on the phone, is that the Supreme Court is filled with judges who are just like generals and admirals in the DOD, in the Department of Defense. Those generals and admirals are so political that they fought to get rid of Trump, who was really there for them more than anyone else. They didn't want him there because they're so political. They're establishment politicians. They are more concerned with getting transgender people in the military than they are actually whether or not a transgender person has any effect on the ability of the fighting force. They won't let somebody with asthma in the military because they're medically dependent, but they'll let somebody who's transgender who's also medically dependent, and they'll just look the other way. And why is that? That's because these generals and admirals are so damn political. They are literally Republicans or Democrats leading the Department of Defense, right? And when I say Republicans or Democrats, I'm not talking about you, somebody who votes Republican or votes Democrat. These are people who are establishment people. That's how once you get to 06, which is in the Army, it is a colonel, in the Marine Corps colonel, in the Navy, that's a captain. So in 06, I left out Air Force there. They're also a colonel at that point. But when you get to that level, the next step up is general or admiral, right? You do not make rank at that level. You get pulled up into that rank, and you continuously get pulled up based on, it's not really leadership. I mean, we can look at the weirdo who's in charge, who's the Secretary of Defense now, and his Army career, and he clearly got pulled up. He didn't make rank. I mean, he made rank to a certain point, but he obviously was somebody that they were pulling up based on the characteristics of what they wanted and somebody who would appease, or somebody who is just left because he's a leftist. So when we look at the Supreme Court and we look at the justices, they're the same way. You don't get to the Supreme Court by being a great judge or a very impartial judge. They're really good at what they do. You don't get to that level. You get to that level because you are just in the thick of politics. And that's the way that these people look at the Constitution. They look at it as they said when I was in college at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, that the Constitution was a living, breathing document, which is false. But that's what these judges believe. And, again, when I was talking to Dr. Lucarini today, he's beside himself because of, what they did in Pennsylvania, which was basically they said when it came to their lawsuit that was going forward there in January about the election process, they said we have to wait. They gave a reason why they had to wait, and then once they waited, they said, well, it's too late. We can't go it can't go forward. And they basically just played the people who were bringing the lawsuit forward. They just played them and just played the American people and just went on. Because why? Because they're not about making a decision. The Supreme Court rarely goes, because you look, when we talk about election tampering or all these different things, that's criminal. It's not just political. That is criminal. That's a criminal case. And most cases that come before the Supreme Court are not criminal cases. And quite frankly, they know if they go down that road that regardless of what they should be doing, which is saying this is going to cause a big issue in the United States, it may cause an uprising of some kind, but it is a hard decision, but we have to make it. And we have to allow this lawsuit to go forward so we can see what reality was. They're not going to do that, right? They're appeasers. They try to legislate from the bench, and they try to manage, apparently in this case, manage the political fallout, or manage the what's the word I'm looking for here? They're trying to manage the outcome of the situation so that the populace does not go crazy and that there's not conflict. And they're trying to manage that, do crisis management from the bench. That's not what justices are supposed to do, but that's what they're doing. That's what they do. Why? Because they're politicians. Just like the admirals and generals, these people at the top in the Supreme Court didn't get there because they're great judges. They got there because they're great politicians. And they're the establishment. Period. Now, these are things that you have to understand when you wake up every day and you say, well, I'm conservative, or I'm Republican, and I feel like this, and you watch the news and you say, well, Tiger Woods ran off the road, and the CNN is saying this, and Fox is saying that. Look, you're not going to make a determination about what happened to Tiger Woods based on the Republican or Democrat parties, okay? That you're going to let the facts speak for what happened there. And by the way, two things about that today. Good Lord, I've never seen such coverage on a car accident in my life. It was kind of ridiculous. They were interviewing, I don't know, the whole thing was just kind of, you would thought the Gulf War started again, the way they were interviewing people and experts coming in and talk about golf and Tiger and all. It was an accident. And kind of based on what's the information that's coming in, something was going on there. I don't know what was going on, but if it was substance that was involved, or, maybe didn't get enough sleep, or he was in a rage about something, but I don't think he was just late for a meeting, and I don't think he was just driving, like a maniac, but evidently he lost control of that vehicle, and that crash happened. I don't know. It's interesting to see, but I'm not really concerned about it, to tell you the truth. So it's important for you to think about all this stuff, about how you make your decisions when you turn the television on and what you allow to influence you, because people are getting outraged in this nation, and they've been outraged in this nation, and they're basing it on what the mainstream media is telling them. And what the mainstream media is telling them, whether it's Fox or CNN or MSNBC, I'm not going to put Newsmax in that category. Newsmax is a news network, and so they're going to follow some of the stories out there, the same stories in the same way that other media outlets are going to. But primarily when you look at the main news networks, everything is decided upon or amongst along, I should say, a party line. COVID, the entire thing about COVID has been down a party line. Fauci is a politician. He is. I tell you, I don't know if that guy in the past. I mean, they say he was like this groundbreaking, researcher and doctor when it came to the AIDS epidemic, but this guy is a complete wacko when it comes to the reality of what's going on with COVID. I mean, he's all over the place. I would hate to have that guy as a doctor. Could you imagine that? It reminds me of that doctor on Family Guy when he comes in. The doctor was always saying, something about, I have terrible news. It looks like it's malignant, and they're like, what? And then he's like, yeah, this tick was on me. It was like a cancer. I mean, like the guy is constantly saying little innuendos like that just freak people out. That's like Dr. Fauci. He's like all over the place. There's a good chance. I can't even do a Dr. Fauci impersonation, but just imagine me saying something that sounded really stupid and incompetent, and then you could just throw Dr. Fauci's voice in there. That's basically the best impersonation I can get of him. But everything is along a political line, and you cannot make your decisions on that. You cannot make your decisions about life and happiness based on political lines. Ethics, morals, understanding God, learning and realizing that you will die. Well, you don't know if it's going to be tomorrow. Heck, you could have been driving down the road for some strange reason, and that could have been Tiger Woods going out of control, running into you. You could have been walking down the street this week, and that Delta Airlines, if you were in Colorado, you could have been walking down the sidewalk and had a piece of an airplane land on top of your head and kill you. You don't know when your day is going to come. You could live to be 105, one of the oldest people ever. You don't know. But it doesn't matter if you live to 120. You will eventually die. And when you realize that, when you get to know God and realize that he's real, when you understand that politics has been the same since the dawn of man. It's basically a competition in who thinks that, well, typically it's not a competition between leaders. It's a competition between people who can make the people around them think that shit's so bad and they're the only ones with the answer. That's really what politics has been since the beginning of man, since the fall of man, I should say. And you can't allow that to formulate your decisions on what's right or wrong. And you also can't be afraid to tell people in leadership positions that they're wrong, as long as it doesn't get you fired. President Trump, for instance, I supported President Trump long before other people did. When he was even talking about going and running for president, I was one of the people on national television and on Hannity's radio show when I was hosting. I said it before he did that I supported Trump. But I'm very critical of Trump. I think he did a fantastic job when he was president, but with the exception of, it wasn't just the media's fault that he was a target every day. He made himself a target every day. You engage with bullies, and I am faulty of this. People come and they come at me on Twitter, or they come at some group that I'm supporting or people that I love. Then I get goaded into it and I go after them. And typically, I'm successful when I'm going after somebody on Twitter, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to look like somebody who is a quality person after I go after them. So even though my judgment and my why I was doing it was good. So I have been critical of President Trump because every day he fed into it. He could have done so many things to get away from the media, but every day he stepped back into that fray. And it first it served a purpose, but later on it just served to destroy him more and more and cause a real problem with the American people. Now, I'll be critical of him, but I believe he's a great leader. He's one of the few people that's been in and out of Washington, D.C. that I could say was a true leader. Most of these politicians are not leaders. They're just literally politicians. I've said before, I think that the way President goaded people into coming there on January 6th, letting them believe that some great reveal was going to happen, I don't know if he was believing his own crap or what, but it was a mistake. It was a mistake. I was warning people on not to go there. And I can be critical of the president about that. But I'm not going to worship anybody. But I would tell him to his face, I think he did an amazing job. I think that there were some things that could have been prevented, and those are the things that bit him the biggest. But overall, he did a good job. But I'll be critical of those things. I wouldn't hide it from him. If I had the chance to sit down with the president and he would say, how would you grade my time as president? I would be honest with him. I would say you did these things amazingly and you just got off track in these other things. Now, he's human, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, he was attacked by the media and the lying Democrat Party and the lying Republican establishment. So I can't fault him completely. But that's what my criticism would be. And the reason I keep saying this is that if you are getting your morals and ethics from the right source and your understanding of what works and what doesn't through great discernment and not being political, you will see where criticism needs to be made. You will hold people to the task, and you'll come out of it with, you may not shine in their eyes, but you're going to come out of it knowing that you're right. And inevitably, if you're right and you stick with truth, you will see the outcome of that. And you will know when these things fold the way you thought they should or not. You will be able to sit back and say, you know what? I don't like the way this turned out, but I was right. I was right because I based it upon, my ability to discern, using my ethics and morals that I learned in the right way, and an understanding of what needs to be fixed and what doesn't need to be fixed, and how things like, I have a great story of a girl who used to be pro-choice. She never had an abortion, but man, she just told every girl that this was her right. They needed, if they wanted to get an abortion, they should. And then one of her friends came up to her one day and she said, I'm pregnant. And these were, college age girls. And she was like, well, you get an abortion. It's your right. You can do it. You shouldn't be carrying a child. And she literally talked her friend into getting an abortion. And then when she got the abortion, it destroyed that girl's life. She could not get back past the fact that she had killed a child. And it wasn't until she destroyed her friend's life by talking her into it that she realized it was her fault. And yes, in fact, that girl had killed a child that she didn't want to kill, and that she had literally talked her friend into doing it because she didn't use her ethics and morals to guide and direct her friend to making an educated, moralistic, ethical decision on what to do, and an adult decision. This is where you don't want to go. This is the type of decision that you can make that's critical. And if you base it on the wrong things, especially politics, you will get an outcome the same way. It destroyed their friendship, these two girls, and has played a role in the mental capacity of the person that I know who talked the other girl into getting an abortion. It's been a heavy, heavy weight her entire life, and will be until she dies. So that's all I really, looking at the news today and looking at these things, it's important for us to realize what the influence is that we're leaning on to make decisions. And if you are guided by morals and ethics and by God, and I'm not talking about morals and ethics of let's treat people good. I'm talking about real morals and ethics. Study God, study him. How does he work? Why are things good versus bad? And you'll make the proper decisions. Is this really broken? Should we fix this? Asking that question. Why am I watching television and COVID is completely split on the reality of COVID down political lines? Now, you may have to wear a mask when you go to here or to there, but you may want to do something different in your own time. Ask yourself, what's the truth here? Can I find out what the truth is? Is there somebody in your home who's elderly, who's susceptible, or somebody that you're going to see that's elderly in a month? Prepare yourself before you see them. The reality is, if you're making good ethical and moral decisions with good discernment based on your relationship with God, you will be able to see everything clearly. And you're not going to be listening or expecting these politicians to make these decisions that are absolute, that you should realize. President Trump should have realized all these people that he put into powerful positions, that majority of them were Washington, D.C. Power players. They were part of that evil family tree. That's it. That's all I got. There's news out there, but this is something that I just keep seeing over and over and over again. And if you're stuck on the headlines, if you turn the radio on or the TV on and you see some things, you're going to get misguided. You're going to end up being even more than you are probably right now, goaded into looking at things from a political standpoint. And you have to guard against that. That's really the most important thing that you can do right now. Now, as I've been talking about on this episode 157 of the Experts Podcast, you have to make your decisions in life not based on your political leaning. Look, if you get your morals and ethics from a political party, you're going to be in bad shape. You need to study and learn and get a relationship with God. Crack open the Bible, learn about Jesus. But for goodness sakes, don't turn the television on and determine what you think about COVID or what's best for the children at the border based on what the Democrat and Republican parties are telling you. You want to make a good decision, start increasing your morals and ethics and your ability to discern, and you will know the truth. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.